having me today, especially on Halloween. I wish I could see you all and see if you have awesome costumes on. Sorry, 1 second. I just have to log back in here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to take a page from one of the previous presenters and my friend Cindy Vargas Cruz and invite you all to just close your laptops, turn off your technology, and focus on these learning objectives where we're going to talk about the need for and challenges to adapting services for vulnerable populations. We'll also talk through conceptual models that can guide these efforts. And then we'll describe some methodological approaches to implementing and evaluating adaptive services in actual real-world settings. So first I want to just acknowledge my funding sources, predominantly the NIMH and the Fogarty division of the NIH. And I also want to acknowledge my amazing mentor team, so Brenda Feichner right here at UCSF, and then Ambrosio Moljardin in Mexico. And then my collaborator, Eva Rojo, is really instrumental in this work. So I just wanted to highlight these teams. And then also highlight our setting. So I'll be talking about work that started here in San Francisco and also work that's being done in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico. So today we'll begin with some background and significance for adapting interventions, and then the majority of my presentation will focus on adapting the CLS program for Spanish-speaking families in the United States and Mexico, and then we'll wrap up with some conclusions and future directions, as well as some future actions planned for here at CSFGH. The acronym's hard with that, so. All right. So this is not news to anyone in this room or anyone listening out there, but there is a huge unmet need in our country and worldwide for youth mental health. According to the NIMH, mental health disorders typically begin in childhood or adolescence, but treatment isn't initiated until years later, if at all. And of course, we know that there are a host of negative consequences to untreated mental illness, including school dropout, physical health problems, hospitalization, and suicide. So mental health service utilization is poor globally, but multicultural communities such as Latinx youth of Spanish-speaking families exhibit even higher levels of unmet need due to a cumulative burden of barriers and stressors. So for example, mental health stigma is certainly something that we're not affected by, but it's really, really prominent in many Latinx communities. Also, these communities are less likely to speak English and have health insurance, which you can imagine contributes to difficulty accessing and receiving care. I just want to give a shout out to NAMI for these awesome infographics depicting those NIMH stats. There's substantial evidence that at-risk and underserved populations may benefit from adapted services, and this is particularly relevant for parent or family-based services because of the cultural relation between our cultural background, our values, our beliefs, and parenting practices and family practices. And many of our existing parent-based training programs are kind of clouded in the cultural lens of the researchers who developed them, which, to no surprise, are predominantly white middle-class United States researchers. And so these seem particularly ripe for adaptation efforts. Although we know that this can be really beneficial, adapting services comes with a lot of considerations. First, you have to think about practical considerations like secure setting funding and providers. Oftentimes, cultural adaptation efforts, particularly in international settings, suffer from funding gaps and provider attrition. You also have to think about linguistic and cultural appropriateness whenever you're adapting a service for a new language, and those might not be one and the same. And I'll walk through one particular example in our work where we found that just translating something into a new language does not necessarily mean it's ready to go and it means the same thing. There's also a number of methodological challenges to consider. One of the first dialectics that's highlighted in this field is the need to balance fidelity with the original service with adaptation, right? So how much can we adapt a service before it becomes something totally new? Along the same lines, we also want to think about what population we're adapting this for and how generalizable it's going to be. So as our world becomes increasingly multicultural, it is unfeasible that we will have a service for every single subgroup of diversity, and there is certainly room for some specificity, so this is a constant balance. And then lastly, we want to think about balancing effectiveness of services in real-world settings with really well-controlled studies. So despite all of these challenges, we do have a few recent positive examples of adaptation for family or parent-based services for youth with inattention and disruptive behavior problems, so like ADHD and ODD. And across these efforts, we see some common themes. One is collaboration between the team who originally developed the program and the team who's adapting the program. This is really key that there's that constant communication and collaboration. Another thing that's really important is iterative revisions. So rather than adapting everything all at once and just saying, let's see how it goes, adapting things little by little and making changes that are indicated along the line is something that's emphasized in more recent guidelines. And then something that's even more recent taking steam is theoretical models guiding your adaptations. And this allows other people to really understand how you did and why you did it, and it also helps other people replicate. Well, if I want to adapt my service for a different population, what are the steps that they took? And so these four adaptation efforts used all of these guidelines. So what are some theoretical models for adapting adaptations? One of the first known models was Bernal and colleagues' ecological validity model. And this was originally developed for the Latinx population, and it has 8 different domains of consideration for when we're thinking about adapting a service. And the parent-child interaction therapy adaptation for Puerto Rico and the parent management training Oregon model in Mexico City both used this approach of the ecological validity model. We also have stage models like the CAP model you see here, and these are really based on Rogers' diffusion of innovation theory, and they incorporate both top-down and bottom-up approaches. And the PMTO also used a stage model, and then the Strengthening Families Program Adaptations for Spain and Central America used the stage model as well. So as you might have been able to tell, the PMTO program actually used both models, so we call this the stacked model. We are following the stages of a CAP model while also considering the different domains of the ecological validity model. And this is really what I copied for my adaptation efforts, because I thought that this really was the most compelling combination of models. And the PMTO is a pretty similar treatment to what I'm about to describe that we decided to adopt. So our first step was setting the stage. So in this stage of the CAP model, you want to choose the service that you're going to adapt and also choose the population that you're going to adapt it for. And then you also want to develop the necessary partnerships to be able to do that work. So sorry that that's covered up there, but work to date, our service that we decided to adapt was the Collaborative Life Skills Program, which was developed right here at UCSF by Linda Feichner. And it is an evidence-based behavioral school-home treatment, which incorporates parent management training skills groups, classroom management, and child skills groups. And her primary outcome trial revealed that the Collaborative Life Skills Program does indeed reduce ADHD and ODD symptoms as well as related impairment, more so than typical school practices. So the other thing that's really important to know about this program is it's delivered by school mental health professionals right there in the school setting at no cost to families. So you can imagine we're already addressing some of the practical barriers that I mentioned before for Latinx families. And so as Dr. Feichner was developing this program with San Francisco Unified School District, they actually requested a Spanish language version to meet the needs of their increasingly diverse parent population. And so that's where our partnership really started. I came here to do my training, and Dr. Araujo came came up from Mexico to do her fellowship, and so that's where we decided to take on the task of adapting the collaborative life skills program for Spanish-speaking families in San Francisco. So that brings us to the next stage of the CAS model, which is initial adaptations. And remember, because we're balancing fidelity with adaptation, we want to begin with really minor changes to just see if and which are needed. Sorry about that covering up there again, but when we were making our adaptations, again, we used the Bernal and colleagues ecological validity model. Of course, we had to start with language, right? We had to translate it into Spanish. And we used a method which is called decentering, which really means that you're emphasizing the meaning rather than the actual language translation. And I'll show you an example of this in just a moment. We kept most of the content, concepts, and methods the same. However, we did follow some of our past footsteps of like the PCIT, Adaptations for Spanish-Speaking Families, by inviting the extended family to participate. And then we also removed the discussion of the time-out discipline strategy because it's just not very practiced in the Latinx community. And luckily, our pilot with 24 youth across 4 schools in San Francisco Unified showed similar outcomes to the original trial. So the school mental health providers in San Francisco, their school social workers, they were able to deliver the program faithfully. They stuck to the manual, and the participants attended, they engaged, and sure enough, those kiddos receiving the program showed significant reduction in symptoms and impairment compared to the kids waiting for the program and just receiving school services as usual. So because that pilot went so well, my colleague Ava, her fellowship was done, she went back to Mexico and we continued collaboration, and she said, we just don't have anything like this in Latin America. There are no school-based behavioral services. Really all the psychiatric care that happens is within a psychiatric hospital, and we know that only 14% of kids with mental illness in Mexico are receiving care. So it seemed like a really great opportunity to try and bring this program to this community in need. So our first aim for my Fogarty Fellowship was to adapt the CLS program for these Mexican schools, and then also implement and evaluate it in a small pilot with 4 schools. And we predicted that it would show feasibility, the providers would be able to deliver it faithfully, and participants would attend and they would engage. And we also predicted that those kiddos receiving the program would get better, more so than kids waiting to receive the program. And we called the program CLS Fuerte, and this was actually based on a suggestion from one of our focus groups in San Francisco, where a Latinx mother said, I really think you should name it something about family strength, because that's what it did. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna take your idea, and I'll always credit you. So our first step was making iterative translations to our language. So this is an example of decentering. When we originally translated this strategy, which is called attending, it's basically positive quality time that a parent spends one-on-one interacting with the child. The literal translation came out as atención, which means attention, which just doesn't really make sense, especially since it's an intervention for children with attention and behavior problems. Like it was a really confusing translation. So what we did is we called it tiempo especial. So this is not a direct translation, right? If you back translate that, it'll come out as special time. So not the same at all as attending, but the meaning's the same. And that's really what we're going for. All right, so other than that, like I said, we try not to make very many changes, but we did change the name to emphasize family strength. We also changed a couple of the methods because we were anticipating a lot of abuelas participating, or grandmothers. Instead of calling it parent training and saying parents everywhere, we replaced that word with caregivers to be more inclusive of the extended family. Because the Spanish-speaking families in the US were really overwhelmed with our evaluation procedures, we really streamlined this and only used measures that were really necessary and validated in Spanish. Because Mexico is really good at celebrating, they have a lot of holidays, a lot of puentes, which I must say I miss, we had to kind of change the structure. So instead of 10 60-minute groups like we do here in San Francisco, we stumped it down into 6 90-minute groups, and we emphasized the strategies that the parents in San Francisco, the Spanish-speaking parents in San Francisco, said were most useful. And then some of the strategies that were considered less useful, like homework hour, we saved for the maintenance period, so kind of booster sessions. And then the Mexico School District was really excited about this idea, but they were kind of not excited about only 6 families being able to participate at a time per school. So we extended that to 8 families from Mexico, and then we also did an augmented outreach and recruitment strategy to make sure we were reaching the families that really needed this program, especially since nothing like this has really been done there. So we got kind of creative for this. We invited everyone at all of the schools to a meet and greet, just to get to know us, see our faces, see who we are. And then during that meet and greet, we showed this silent video of a Latinx boy exhibiting ADHD-like behaviors. And we actually created this silent video for my dissertation project as a way to capture these constructs of inattention and disruptive behavior without putting a cultural lens on the language, right? So we wanted the parents to see it rather than us trying to tell us what we think it is. And then we had them fill out some rating scales assessing help seeking and child behavior and culture. And this served 2 purposes. We were able to do a needs assessment, which we've been able to use for preliminary data and future grant applications, kind of establishing why this is needed. And then we also got a lot of families self-referring from this meeting. And you know, there's no way to know if those families wouldn't have still been in the program, if we wouldn't have done this, but I just want to say anecdotally being in the room, there were a lot of light bulb clicks that I could see in people's faces as we showed the videos, and the families would come up to us after and say, that was my kid, that's definitely my kid in the video, I need to be in your program. And I'm not sure if all of those families would have had that same click if we had done the recruitment verbally or in a written format. We used a school clustered randomized controlled trial design. So all children in all 4 schools had baseline ratings of inattention, disruptive behavior, and impairment from their parents and teachers. After we got those baseline ratings, we randomized 2 schools to get the program right away and 2 schools to be on a wait list for getting the program for the spring semester. And then right before the holidays, when the 2 schools immediately receiving the program were finished, we took ratings again to see if these children got better, more so compared to the kids just waiting. So as I mentioned before, we kept the integral components of CLS exactly the same. So we still have the behavioral child skills groups, the classroom management system, and the caregiver skill groups, which I'll talk about more in detail just now. In order to train the school mental health professionals, which are really bachelor's or maybe master's level, they're called support teachers there. To train them, we give them a very detailed scripted manual. So I don't know if you can see this, but it's literally written word for word exactly what they could say if they wanted to read this word for word. There's a lot of visual prompts for using the different attention management and behavior management strategies. We also did an initial 8-hour training, and you can see from this picture, we try to make it really fun, really engaging, a lot of practice, and they feel really motivated and confident by the time they walk out of that training to start the program. We also observed each group and rated Fidelity. We rated how well the providers were sticking to the manual and how engaged the families were. Oh no, you're not going to be able to see that, but let's see if I can remember what it says. I think it says that we did weekly consultations. We did do that. Let me see if there's anything else that I'm missing now. Oh, I can't see it on mine either. Well, those are the main points, so we'll just stop right there. So let's talk about the different components. The first component are 6 weekly child skills groups. And these children learn social, emotional, and organizational skills through various formats. So one format is didactic instruction. So here's one of the support teachers teaching the main points of good sportsmanship. I have to say this is the smallest part of what we do in that group because these are elementary school children, so kids about 5 to 12 are really not going to pick up that much from this style of teaching, right? So we do a lot of modeling. So this is one of the sport teachers showing them, well, if I lost the game and I stomped off, is that good sportsmanship? Like, no, right? So more engaging than that, just teaching. There's a lot of practice. So here's the kids having to use and practice good sportsmanship, playing a Jenga game. And you can also see they have conversation questions so they can practice their conversation skills. Here's an in vivo practice example, trying to teach an abstract concept of a morning routine. So that's a really heady concept for kids, right? What does that actually mean? So what we do is we set up one side of the table has a morning routine. They do these same steps in the same order every day. The other side of the table has no morning routine. They have to wait for the teacher to call out what they're supposed to do, and we see who goes first. Which side do you think goes first, routine or non-routine? Routine, right, you guys are right. So by practicing this, they have a lot of fun, and they really get this kind of big concept of a routine. We also use corrective feedback, so if a child breaks one of the group rules, like seat rules, they get their clip moved a little bit, but they get several chances to have reminders. So as long as they stay on the green, by the end of the group, they get a prize, a little toy or a little trinket. If they have a lot of reminders, they end up on yellow, they get a sticker, not as fun as the prize, but still pretty good. And if they end up on red, they don't get a prize, but they do get to stay in the group and have fun, and everybody starts on green at each next time. To monitor self-regulation of attention, we do something called attention checks. So this is when I would say, Maggie, what did I just say? Great job, you get to shoot for the stars. And then you would get to take a little ball and throw it in this box, and for some reason the kids go wild for this. They really think it's so fun, and it helps them. They remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be paying attention because if I get the question right, I get to get my attention checked. And then to encourage generalization and skill practice across the home and school setting, children earn something called stars, like little yellow tickets, anytime they're showing the skills that they're supposed to be practicing. So, for example, oh, Jamie, you did such a good job waiting your turn today at Jenga. Here's a star for good sportsmanship. And then those kiddos take those stars and collectively, as a group, earn a party at the end of the group. For some reason in Mexico, they tend to choose sushi for their party prize, even if it's 8 a.m., which I always thought was really fun. So the second component is one of our best studied interventions for ADHD and ODD, and it's a classroom management system in the form of a daily report card. So this is when the teacher selects 2 to 3 individual goals for each child, and note that these are framed in the direction that we want the child to be doing these things. Right? So stays on task, gets started right away, stays in seat. There's very clear criteria for how they earn those points for those goals. So for example, if you stay on task with 1 or fewer reminders in the morning, you're going to earn your 2 points. Okay? And then they get rated several times throughout the day, and at the end of the day, if they earn about 80% of their points or more, they earn a prize at home. So for example, maybe they earn a special game with mom, maybe that's when they earn screen time. So you can see this really supports the school-home collaboration and communication, and also gives those children more immediate feedback about what we want to see them doing throughout the day. Lastly, we have the parent, we usually call them parents, but again, remember in the adaptive version, we call them caregiver skills groups. And these are really based on the contingency management theory of antecedents and consequences to improve child behavior. So these are real pictures from the wrap-up groups in Mexico. And this picture here on the right is one of my favorite products from my Mexico fellowship, because it's from one of our lowest functioning schools that's really, really affected by trauma and the narco-drug violence happening around. And so it might be a school that on paper you would think these parents are not going to get contingency management, right? They've got enough going on, they're not going to sit with me through this abstract theory. But by the end, this is in week 5, they're able to say, so in the red is what we don't want. So we don't want that he's not following directions. What's the antecedent? What happens first? We give him a direction, put your shoes in their place. What's the consequence? He doesn't do it, and the shoes just stay where they are, right? That's what we don't want. In the green is what we do want. We want him following directions. What are we going to do in the antecedent to promote that? We're going to set up a when-then rule. We're going to do special time, so we're having a positive environment. And then as a consequence, when they follow the directions, they get praise, and they get some sort of reward, right? It might be a high five, might be some tokens that they're earning up for something. And so this is it, they got it. Like, these parents got contingency management, even though many of them don't have above a 5th grade education level. So I just love this picture of this. All right, so we did reach our 32 desired families for our sample size. And as you can see, the caregivers are predominantly mothers. who are married, but we've had a pretty good range of socioeconomic status. And then for the children, again, these are all going to be in 1st through 5th grade, and not surprisingly, because of base rates of ADHD, we see that we have more boys. Now, even though all of these youth technically meet criteria for ADHD based on our screener, only 12 of them have a formal ADHD diagnosis, and only 5 or 6 of them are receiving any sort of medication treatment, and none of them are receiving behavioral treatment. So you can see this is a really underdiagnosed, underserved group. All right, for our results, the exciting part. So all these results I'm going to show you on the left in the teal is our Mexico results. In the middle are our results from those 24 Spanish-speaking families in the United States. And then on the right is the full CLS trial with across the 23 schools with English-speaking families. And so first I'll go through the Fidelity. So this is how much of the content the providers delivered and how high quality it was. So you can see that these providers delivered 98% of the caregiver group content at really high quality, almost 4.8 out of 5. And this was us rating these with structured Fidelity rating scales. Really similar to our results that we saw with Spanish and English-speaking families in the United States. The student group Fidelity was also great. They covered 92% of the content at very high quality. And the caregivers and students attended. We had about 80% attendance for the caregiver groups, about 90% for the student groups, really similar to what we found in the United States. And then the caregivers, we rated how much they adhere to the program. And so you can see they adhere more days than not. And then we also looked at how many classroom challenges, how many sheets actually were filled out by the teacher, and they used that behavior management system more days than not, almost 4 days out of 5. All right, so the most exciting results maybe are the efficacy results. So on the left are going to be our group immediately receiving the program. So the teal lines are their baseline ratings in about September, and then the white lines are ratings in about December. So the people on the left have gone through the program, the people on the right have just been waiting to get the program, receiving school services as usual. So you can see here we had a significant drop in inattentive and hyperactive impulsive symptoms as rated by parents and teachers in our CLS group, whereas we saw some reduction in our waitlist group, right? We would expect that they're maturing as they're progressing through school, they're developing, but they weren't significant drops, whereas they were significant in our intervention CLS group. A similar story with ODD symptoms and social impairment. And then also academic impairment, but what's really interesting here, I think, is the family impairment. So we saw significant improvements in family impairment in our intervention group, and actually the waitlist group got worse. So I think this nicely shows why waitlist control designs are a nice option in low resource settings, because it's ethical. These people got the program like 2 to 3 months later, but it also helped us see, are our improvements really greater than we would normally see, and are they preventing deterioration, which can be a really important outcome. One thing that I think is really important whenever you're doing community engaged work is sharing your results with the community right away, right? We've all, I'm sure, heard that 17-year project to publication time gap. This community cannot wait 17 years to hear what happened. So every year at the end of the school year, we are doing a conference with the Sinaloa Education Department. So they invite all the principals, administrators, policymakers to this conference. We were able to present our pilot results, really similar to what I showed you just now. And then we also recognize the participating providers and schools. It's a lot of effort that they're putting in. You saw they did it really well. They delivered the content. They did it at really high quality. And they worked hard to get there. So I think you can see on their faces they're genuinely proud of what they did, and as they should be. We were also able to disseminate our results pretty quickly to the family communities by getting some press in the local newspapers and radio and TV. And so this was exciting because we were able to kind of interface right away with these families who had participated, and also other families who hadn't yet participated got excited about this new program that's happening in their area. So the pilot study conclusions are CLS Forte with these minor adaptations showed high rates of provider fidelity, high rates of participant attendance and engagement, and significant improvements, more so than children waiting to get the program. So going back to my title and that dialectic that we talked about at the very beginning, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you have an intervention that you want to try with the new population, don't just make all of these changes, just try it out with as little changes as you can to see which are needed. Our next steps, immediate next steps, are we got funding from the University of Sinaloa and the University of California, Berkeley to continue our expansion of CLS Fuerte and CLSS to 6 more schools in Mexico and 4 more schools in the United States. We're wrapping up towards the end of that project. An anticipated next step with the grant revision due literally a week from today is a project that's really focused on building capacity in Mexican researchers and the school community to be able to do clinical research projects like the CLS Forte adaptation, implementation, and evaluation on a larger scale. So this is kind of falling into the adaptation iterations stage and our stage model that's guiding our process. And so we're applying to the NIH Fogarty Global Brain Disorders call for this. So cross your fingers for it. And then we also have some cool projects planned, hopefully for some collaboration here at the General. So with the support and collaboration with Dr. Martinez and Dr. Toulouse-Shams, we have a revision of an R21 and a route under review, looking at can we create a community-based prevention program to encourage ADHD identification and treatment in Latinx youth. Because these pilot studies are really showing that treatment seems to work just as well with Latinx families, but we're still seeing disparities in ADHD diagnosis and treatment. This was really our idea for how to bridge that gap, right? So it seems like once families get hooked into the services, they like them, they attend, they benefit from them. So how do we get them hooked into the service? This is our idea of a prevention program. And we're really excited to try and we propose doing cohorts in Mexico and cohorts here in San Francisco so that we can compare and also look at the effect of acculturation and migration. And then last year at the UCSF Psychiatry Research Retreat, Dr. Adrian Aguilera was presenting about his text app for adjunct to CBT for depression group, which Ricardo Munoz, one of our alumni from here at UCSF, actually developed. And my colleague, Dr. Darrow, and I got really excited because we run the same CBT for depression group at Langley Porter, but for teens. And so we thought, well, this would be a great idea to try and use this text application that's been working well in adults with teens, right? We all know teens love texting even more than adults. So again, with Dr. Martinez, with Dr. Toulouse-Shams, Dr. Darrow, and Dr. Aguilera, we have a proposal in R34 out right now. And our adaptation model for this program is really based on the models that I discussed earlier. So our idea is, do we need to adapt the text intervention at all for teens? And given that we have such diverse teens here at the General and at Langley Porter, especially sexual and gender minority teens, are there any adaptations indicated for any of those populations? So what we're going to do is, or what we propose to do, is roll out the program as it is with the teens, and then get their feedback about the usability, do some focus groups, and see if any adaptations are indicated for any certain subgroups. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, please let me know. I love collaborating with people. As I said, this last project came out of the last year's psychiatry research retreat. So I think we're getting really good at, we're getting better at collaborating between our different sites here at UCSF and with other sites internationally. So I'd love if any of you have other ideas about that. I'd love to chat more. All right, I just want to thank my wonderful UCSF CLS team, also my team at the University of Sinaloa, my lovely husband for those wonderful photos and graphics that hopefully kept you all engaged throughout this presentation. And then of course, through our partnerships to our families. Okay, I think I sped through that, so we do have some time for questions. Yeah. that's a great question. One thing that I was anticipating being challenging was praise. We focus on praise a lot, and some of our Spanish-speaking families in the United States resist against that and say, well, this is just something my child's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be respecting me. He's supposed to be respecting the teacher. Why am I giving him a jelly bean for doing that? Right? So I was anticipating that, and that actually wasn't a problem in Mexico. The families really were on board with the praise, and that's one of the strategies that I feel like they held on to. The other one that was easiest, or maybe not easiest, but that in the focus groups they said they keep doing the most, is something we call a win-then model. So basically, when you do this thing that I want you to do, then you get this thing that you want, right? So when you do your homework, then you can have screen time. And it's a really important skill, right? Because that's what keeps us functioning adults, right? When I come to work today, then I can go home and suck into trick-or-treaters, right? But I have to go to work first. So those were the ones that were really easy. Ones that were challenging. I would say planned ignoring, which I think is the most challenging strategy across the board, right? So that's where we're teaching families to hold attention when a child's doing minor misbehavior and then let switch back on when they're doing the positive behavior. And that's hard to teach anywhere. And so I think I had a really hard time wrapping around how to explain it in a second language. Yeah, where people maybe hadn't ever heard of this strategy, whereas here maybe they've heard of this before. That's a great question. So. Yeah, that's a great question. So we really want to make this program as feasible and accessible as possible to the families. So the social workers and the teachers decide when to do the groups based on what's convenient for the families. It's most often that the parents' groups happen right at drop-off. So the parents that come drop off their kids and then go to the group. And then the child groups are most often, in fact, I think they were always measured in school. I don't think I've ever had one after school. Sometimes it's just challenging. People say, well, really, you're pulling your kids out of an academic setting when they likely have academic problems. So we talk to the teachers about what's a good time in the day that we can pull everybody. In order to increase the generalization, we give those skills posters with the skill of the week to every teacher, and we encourage them to hang them in the classroom. So when the child's doing something, they may say, oh, remember, Johnny, what's that skill about accepting? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do what my parent teacher says, even if I don't really want to. Exactly, great, good stuff. Right, so we try to integrate it that way. It isn't a tiered intervention in the sense that children not in the program receive anything during the actual trial phase. But what we've heard from teachers, both in the United States and Mexico, is that they often will use that daily report card system with other children after the trial. So the way that my team kind of sees this CLS intervention is it's almost a roadway to training the school personnel in evidence-based strategies. Right, so even though, yes, we only get 6 or 8 families benefiting at a time from our trial, but then those teachers can do the daily report card with anything they want. Those social workers can deliver the program again and again and again and again. So we try to make it sustainable in that way. Any questions? Please go. Nothing. Yeah, that's a great question, because in the United States we do incentivize them, right? Because we have NIH funding, that's a big funding. I had a little fellowship, they gave me like 25 grand, we had no money, right? So it was really that these schools wanted the program. They got excited that they were selected. We were from 4 schools in the district that got to start out with this, and they felt really proud that they were selected, and they were really excited about getting this program, getting this service to their families. It's a great question. Public schools. So we have, our team in Mexico has done research and worked with the school district for a really long time. So we worked with the special education department to pick schools that we thought would be open to the idea and would be able to carry out the idea. We also asked for a mix of about half higher functioning schools and half lower functioning schools, and then we randomized So we did one high-functioning school with waitlist, one intervention, one low-functioning school, waitlist, one intervention. I do think that even though we've never tried this in private schools, I think it could easily be done in other settings like a private school or a charter school. But because of our mission to really reach the underserved, we like to try to do it in public schools if we can. Great question.
While they're asking their questions, if you need to sign in, my notebook is back there. I completely forgot the sign-in sheets. Otherwise, you can email me.
That's a great question. So they definitely, especially in our Mexico pilot, they self-selected. So that was part of the process when we're picking the school, picking a school that had a teacher that was interested in doing this. In the United States with the larger trial, we did see a little bit more variability for how motivated the different social workers were. Some were really excited, some not as excited, right? And so that's why I think doing those larger scale trials is a great next step to see, can we even separate out some of these differences and see if we can predict mechanisms for who does well and who does not well. Lester, maybe you should help me write my grant. So that's actually what we're proposing, is looking at mechanisms, and fidelity and engagement are two mechanisms that we chose to look at for outcomes. So great job. I'm feeling really good about my grant now, right? That seems like it makes sense. Okay, great. Yeah, right. Another great question, Lakshmi, maybe you should come to our team too, and don't tell your mentors that I said that. You have lovely mentors here. So my mentor at Langley Porter, who develops the program, she's right now working in goal, I forget what they call it in DOE, but it's like an early stage goal to adapt the CLS program to be able to do remote training. So our idea is having the training be online, having web consultation, having us observe via web or even over video. And I think that's really the way that in the future we'll be able to do a study looking at sustainability, right? So it could be maybe just, randomly select different sessions, view in, check the fidelity. And I think that is a way we can reach more communities as well. Oh, great. All right, Lynn, hit me with it.
Oh, perfect. Hold on. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Lauren. I was curious to hear more about how you see kind of the program being sustainable over time when it's kind of no longer part of a research study that's kind of providing that structure.
Yeah, I wish you all were government funders. So the project, the Contingency project, which I put up just before, where we were continuing to form more schools in the United States, that was exactly the purpose of that extension. I wanted to see, since these social workers had already been trained in the CLS program, can they deliver it again with much less support from us? And so the first two schools from last year, we haven't analyzed the data yet, but anecdotally it seems like they did a really great job re-delivering the program without a whole another 8-hour training, without me being there. I just observed the videos after the fact and did fidelity. So I think that is something that we could even scale up, looking at going back into those schools and seeing how the social workers and the teachers continue to do the different evidence-based training strategies. Thank you, Lauren.
Any other questions?
That's a great question, Gladys. And the way that I approach it may not be the way that other people would decide to approach it, but we have very limited exclusion criteria. Basically, if you had a parent or caregiver and a teacher who could speak Spanish who come to the activities and wanted to do it, if you had 6 symptoms of inattention, 4 symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity rated by your parent or your teacher, and parents and teachers were rating impairment, so this kid's having a hard time at school, having a hard time with peers, having a hard time at home, they could be in the study. We did get some kids that certainly had trauma. We also got some kids, we had a kid that had selective mutism. We had a kid that maybe I was a little wondering if they were on the spectrum, right? So I think my thinking about this is these strategies, teaching parents how to be more consistent, teaching kids how to be more organized and socially, emotionally aware, that would work with anybody, right? Whether your inattention is because you're traumatized, or because you're everybody and we're living in a world of technology, whether it's because your home structure is, not so in order. So that's my take on it. I think anybody can teach skills, so come on in, right? I think it would be great if this was actually more rolled out in regular classrooms, right? If all the kids learned about good sportsmanship. I know some adults who could use a review on that, right? The Packers game this weekend, gosh darn it, Ty Montgomery, ugh. So that's my answer to that. Other people may disagree, especially more basic sciences. All right. Any last writing questions? Thank you all for listening and being so engaged, at least here. I can't see you all in the virtual world, but I hope that everyone got something out of this. And as I said, please reach out to me. My email is just my first name, not my last name. I can get back to my email. And happy Halloween. Thank you.